Whoever wins this is into WCS Europe Winter. Whoever loses will have to go through a whole nother bracket. They'll have to go through number 2 or number 3, which is totally possible / probable. These guys all making it to the qualifying matches, regardless if they lose out at the very end, are basically gonna get through the next qualifiers. As far as the 32 players from Europe that we see at these main events go, they're all pretty dependable, with some newcomers, because 32 is a lot of people, right? But, you know, I guess as far as losing out on the people we recognize in that 32, it doesn't happen that often. You know, when Showtime doesn't make it through, you go, whoa, that's really weird. It does happen, but it is really, really weird. So, hey, if you're cheering for either one of these guys and they don't make it through, I wouldn't be so worried. Let's get into the CVT. In the top left is the Red Terran. We just saw him beat Drogo. It is Soul. In the bottom right is the Blue Terran. It is Clem. I don't know what this dance emote chain is, but I like it. Command centers for both parties. Much faster factory, though, for our Blue Terran here. What happened? Okay. So Reactor is faster for Clem. Soul has an extra Marine to help him out in case things went sideways, you know, very quickly, as they both, they both did an SCV Scout? Soul did an SCV Scout. Clem did an SCV Scout. Wow, okay. But the reason that we see the non-SCV Scouts, the reason that we see Clem even take a bit more of a secure, greedier approach, that's the word, the opposite of secure, greedier approach, because for the most part, Port Alexander is a secure map in TVT. Even if they were the 2X Reaper they have two options. They have the ramp and they have this to get up and try and defeat you. And well, if you're going for 1X expand, you don't scout it, you don't prepare for it, a 2X Reaper build can be deadly. It's mostly deadly because you can't just pull SCVs and cover your 1 or 2 Reapers because you don't know where they're coming in from. You pull too late, they have too much room to maneuver. So that's why we see them playing perhaps not to the standard 2 Reapers that you would usually see in TVT, and Clem even not going for a second unit. So the game goes on. Very slight differences anyways. They both knew the weaknesses and strengths of the map, and well, it's a mirror matchup, so as far as the vetoes went down, it was certainly more about their style and individual preference / stasis, because no one likes that map. Both going for Ravens. When you see pros who don't go for Ravens, I actually start question marking. I scratch my head as well because they're just so damn good. And I would even argue that for the pros, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, on stream they talked about how it's impossible not to go for a Raven. The Raven potential for tank pushes that can happen if you're, you know, trying to get to Banshees or something silly like that is too damn strong. They have 2 Ravens, you have 2 Banshees. They're not gonna take any damage, and they can just send whatever army they do have across the map and go, ha ha, what are you gonna do about it? They're insanely good. An insanely necessity. An insane necessity, insanely necessary. Adjectives, adverbs, what even are they? And, they're kind of fun, you know. It creates the early to mid-game micro-war that is Raven versus Raven. I think if you don't see 2 Ravens or both parties, the other option is maybe, if they're both going 1 Rex expands, maybe you see a proxy starport with a Liberator. Maybe you see Viking production off a reactor and a tank push with that instead of a Raven, so 2 Ravens. But otherwise, it's kind of around this, what we're seeing here. And they both are really doing no rush 10. 3rd CC on location for Soul. 3rd CC not on location, but faster for Clem. It's going to kind of time out evenly. They both are going into some Vikings, but Clem went into reactored Vikings. Oh, Soul's just going for a Liberator as well. My bad. We'll see if that's worthwhile. That could be a big difference maker as they both gear up to protect their 3rd bases and maybe even push out. No one has stim yet, so you wouldn't think that was an option, but when you have Ravens and tanks, what else do you need? Am I right, guys? Thank you, Ancient One SC2, the Twitch Prime sub. Sim is on the way for both parties. They both went for double engineering bay, but this is getting really awkward. A scan kind of reveals Soul's intentions, but uh-oh, it's already here. He is in the natural of Clem, where Clem's only at Soul's 3rd base. Now, I would say this is going better for Soul, but can either one of them defend their production? That's the real key here. SCVs are pulled away from the natural, but the command center wasn't lifted that quickly, so it will, in fact, die here. Auto turrets are going to take out the tank on the high ground. Okay, there we go. They really should have targeted it. Interference mages wouldn't have lasted long enough, as the Ravens do go down. The tanks did the turrets did their job on top of the tank, but look who was breached much faster. Soul loses control of his main so much faster than Clem does, but Clem does still lose control. Question mark, there's 2 tanks on the low ground that aren't sieged. There is a Raven left over. Sorry, my bad, just ran out of energy. But there is still a lot of production coming out here for Clem. It's coming out piece by piece, though, so I think it will just be camped. I don't think that's really going to count here. Neither one of them with a lot of production, but Clem has a slightly bigger army. He has 2 Vikings to the 0 of Soul, and now we're going to start talking about serious base race territory things. There goes down his 1 Viking that I think just popped out or something like that. Yeah, that's what happened. He's trying to pop out Vikings, but it's not working. Oh my gosh. He takes on a tank with the help of the SCVs. And this tank almost goes down as well because damn, Viking anti-mechanical is good shit. But what the hell is going to happen here? This is not what we expected from this first game, but it is happening. Command center is found by 1 Viking of Clem. He is now the only one with Vikings and thus would win the air war. And if he wins the air war, then he will win the game because there's no base race. There's no tie, I suppose, if there's no Viking or Liberator for Soul. You know, Ravens, I guess, being in the air, they don't actually do damage to the air along spaces that don't have ground. Right, they have their own auto turret. So Clem, I didn't even realize this. He was trying to get whatever units he could out from his 3rd base, which took so long to be camped. He even got some mining down with some mules. But it is eventually found. They both invest a lot into additional... no, I thought that was 1 new command center. Sorry, that's just all 3 command centers are still alive. Clem's died a lot faster. Souls is now dying. I guess he responded quicker when he realized what was going on, or something along those lines. So his main should die, his natural should die, and his 3rd should die. And without command centers, there is no hope. This command center dies as well, so we really are talking about who wins the air war, and that is Clem. But that doesn't mean that Soul just taps out because he knows he's down in Vikings. Well, he's 0, right? He doesn't tap out because what if Clem's Vikings run over his Marines? Suddenly, it's a tie potential. And in fact, Soul, where is that starport? It's over here trying to produce a Viking, and that will produce faster than a Helen McClellan starport. I can tell you that much. But will it be camped? Soul saw it. They both are figuring out that it's a real base race. We got a couple of last stand units over here. Gonna go for the Raven. But they still have 3 Vikings to deal with. 1 Viking goes down, another one about to pop out. A couple of Marines come from behind. Auto turret's still gonna help in this fight. Tank gets actually siege up on the main. Soul's gonna go for it. He takes out the tank, but he still has to deal with 3 Vikings. The command center's gonna go down. And the Vikings, will they land and try to take this out? No, they will not. And that is the better choice. Could they have taken it out? Probably not either. But even if it was a for sure, or almost for sure, I should say, you would then potentially be giving away your only army and your only win in a real base race. This is so stupid, but this is how it's gonna go down. I actually think they might tie anyways, because, yeah, I think it is actually a tie. It is a tie! The starport's not lifted, it's not dying, it's protected on the ground. There's nothing Clem can do about that. Well, yeah, it's... Yeah, so this is a draw, but technically only if they both agree to draw, I suppose. Otherwise, one person could say no, and then they would force the eventual attack. Well, no, they just force the draw timer, wouldn't they? They'd force the draw timer. So it's in everyone's best interest is just say that it's a draw. If that starport wasn't grounded, if it was forced to lift and be somewhere else, that is Clem's game. But grounded and protected as it was, it's a draw and it's a regame. Amazing. Three Vikings, 2 are injured. That doesn't take on 200 tanks. Well, it takes on 200 tanks if there weren't Marines. And if he was already on the ground as well. I don't know. A part of me wants to, like... What craziness is cray-cray. A part of me wants to go into a unit tester and see what happens, but I'd have to get the health the same exact amount. How weird, y'all. It's the second game number 1. In the bottom right is the Red Terran. It is Sol. The top left is Blue Terran. It is Clem. I thought for sure Clem had it. Clem camped Sol's production so much faster, but Sol, I guess, responded faster? Question mark. His third CC was lifted and running away. His natural was lifted and running away, where Clem just straight up lost his natural right when the push came in. Sol didn't just, like, leave his starport over here, which, again, it would have died. Clem would have won. He landed it and built 2 Vikings from it. I mean, that's just crazy. Crazy stuff. So they flipped positions for the second game, number 1. It's kind of a good thing that it ended with a draw. Well, I guess it depends on your point of view, but... Both players, basically, if either, you know, whoever lost that game in another alternate universe would have been like, well, that's stupid. All I needed was a Marine scouting that right side, and I would have been fine. Clem, his right side was open, Sol, his middle was open. So the fact that that happened to both of them, they both just say, well, that's stupid. So I want to send a Marine out and I'll scout and I'll know where their army is. So it's highly unlikely to get the similar situation. Obviously, it's basically not going to happen. It's going to be a draw again, but I'm talking there probably won't be the gotcha moments that can exist at all times in TBT. The one time your Marine isn't over to the left side to scout is the one time that they go over there and hit you from the left, right? So they're probably going to be a little more on point about that. You know, they don't want to really send out Marines spread out so early on because there's not doom drops happening. There's not... you know, huge armies trying to bypass your vision, but in that specific situation, even with their smaller armies without stim, they still bypass each other, and it was really weird. Has there ever been back-to-back draws? Yes. 100% yes, but I cannot remember what it was. There was a back-to-back draw, I believe, in the Swarmhost era. with a TVZ, I want to say. And I want to say BC Cutie, but that's only because BC Cutie was abusing Ravens at that point, and I think I'm just being, you know, negatively stereotyping him. So Clem wins the Reaper War because the Hellion comes in here. Trying to forget about the mass Raven shenanigans that was Swarm Host times. But he has the faster production, and we're still on Port Alexander, so no abusive Reapers anyways, even if things really start to snowball. Clem went for his own Hellion. There is a possible skip of the Hellion in this matchup if you want to get to a faster Cyclone, but if you don't want to get to a Cyclone at all, then you gotta make a Hellion. Last game, they make a Cyclone, right? This game, no Cyclones. They swap over to start building their Ravens. Aha! Someone does go for a Cyclone, and Soul even lets it be scouted. Well, lets it is a strong word. His entire army is on the other side of the map. The Reaper potential, the grenade potential is high from Soul, but realistically, Clem's army wins out. Cyclone was not a fake. He really is going to go into it, as well as a Raven. Clem did not swap over the starport like I thought he was. He is instead going to go for a tank and a medevac. So is it going to be a very fast, but very dangerous tank marine push? It's silly. You feel dumb when you take damage from it because it's so few units. One unit depending entirely on getting into position, the tank. But it can work. Reaper's still being annoying, and with Clem's builds, it is kind of important that they're killing 1 or 2 Marines. And they wouldn't be so helpful back at home when they're all clumped together. The Cyclone is very helpful, however. It can take out the tank very easily. If there wasn't Micro involved, oh shit. Now the Cyclone's in serious danger. Damn, I didn't even think about that. But a tank does pop out for Soul, and he has the auto turret as well. The tank is not saved, but good almost mass repair there. Clem really showcasing the power of a medevac. Soul's gonna go for a second Raven. Maybe he's regretting not starting a Viking, however. This is just annoying at this point. But it will be taken care of eventually. Behind this, Clem goes into extra production, his own Ravens. And, I guess a tackle up on his barracks. Eventually to start that stim. Soul still dealing with this, still producing his own units. Good lord, the tank. Good lord. The tank, though. It wasn't worth being clever. Well, it was worth being clever until that exact moment. We weren't supposed to lose the tank. Turns out dodging marine projectiles, not really dependable. If only draws were settled with Reaper duels. When 2 people 2-racked each other, it is. So Clem's gonna have the more active army force here. They both get stim around the same time, but Clem's the one maneuvering around. Oh, spoke too soon. Soul is also starting to move out here. They have very similar compositions. Ravens found each other, and there is a lot of choices that went through each of their heads. Turns out that Clem just takes severe damage on his Ravens, and now this push is no longer going to work out. Severely damaged as they are versus the energy taken out from Soul, I guess they both just kind of bounce off each other anyways. Ravens go back to repair, and these Ravens just can't help out much anymore. Liberator to the top side is going to go for some harassment. There's nothing there to defend. Ooh, that timing, though. We'll see how that works out. Clem should have auto-repaired those. Oh, he's not. Okay, he should have gotten really fast into repairing that because Soul's not stopping with his push. He's gonna buy enough time with just pushing, just the mere act of moving across the map to get a couple more maybe auto turrets or interference stages on his Ravens. Now Clem has almost full energy Ravens because of his situation, so they'll give and take, I suppose, but they definitely need to be repaired. This is not a strong army from Soul if the auto turrets weren't involved. And if Clem had his own auto turrets, it really isn't that strong. So I don't think this is a position that Soul will hold on to for very long. Looks like the Liberator was pretty quickly taken out by the missile turret and Vikings. Interference may just go down on the tanks, so the Ravens will lose their lives with the... Ooh, that one barely survives. That makes it a worthwhile trade there. As 2 tanks go down, it's a lot of gas. Only 1 Raven went down. Repair that baby up again. 30 is put down location as Soul puts his down. Already in orbital, though, so it would have been even. But Clem is on the warpath. He just took out some very important units. And even though he lost a Raven, is not taking the other Raven along with him because it's so injured. He is finding Soul without much of a ground army. Soul is mostly dependent on his air, which helped him so much when he was with tanks, when he had a position to abuse. But now it's a different story, as he is going to be locked down in his 3rd base. He could try and just repair and buy time, but I'm not... I guess he could buy time for energy. That's probably what he would do. Now, at this point, with the Marines on top of it, he does have to lift. His Raven's gonna get targeted down. The medevac gets targeted down, so every sim's gonna really hurt here. No combat shields on the way for Clem is a mistake. He's simply not thinking about it right now. Vikings land. This is a really nice choice. They take out the Vikings instantly, but there's not much fodder to help them out. The Marines were already stimmed, already injured, and Soul survives with a Raven and 3 Vikings, all of his SCVs for the most part. 3rd CC goes instantly back. But Clem was mining this entire time, and while his combat shields was late, it's not so much later that's going to be a big deal. I'd say that was ultimately a fight worth taking for Clem. I don't know if I'd call it a win, but, you know, it's okay. He is behind on the upgrades. The time he wasn't, he had +1, but he is farther behind on the +1 armor, and Soul went for double NGs right off the bat. Also double sensor towers. Now that they both have 3 base saturation, we should see both of them go into some static defense. Only sensor towers can be okay. You know, only 1 is like, okay, I guess what you see from pros usually. 2 being maybe a little bit more rare, and then they really don't want to slap down missile turrets. But sometimes it does end up biting them in the butt. Big doom drop, still certainly a thing that happens, even when sensor towers are around. If you scan the main, there's no Vikings, no missile turrets. You can just boost past that sensor tower before they recognize it, before they can act to it. But that's why the Vikings are over here. There's a doom drop over here. It's a bit easier to take care of. So... here's where they start spreading out the Marines. Whoever loses the Marine control in that one tricky pathways might just lose their production in the game. Not in a base race this time. So if we looked at both of their vision, we'd see all the attack paths covered. This one covered by a supply depot, other one's covered by Marines. It is worthwhile for Clem to take that out. He just doesn't seem to see it. Upgrades were in favor of this Marine. 1-1 is to 0-1. Because Clem has not started his... oh no, they're even, sorry. I guess he just got the first shot. But Clem is falling behind in his upgrades. The armory is done, but he hasn't started 2-2. Catches the Raven, and he's gonna catch a tank, and get out of there with some Marines without losing a medevac. Hot damn. That was a good trade. Overall, Clem has found himself a little down in supply, though. He's down in workers, and he's down a little bit in army. And probably most importantly, he's down like 25, 30 seconds on those upgrades. Definitely the most important part about this. Well, maybe second most important. The first rule is not to be caught out of position in TVT, and he might have just been done cut. He might have done goofed. Center tower is taken out, so you no longer know without a scan where they're positioning. That can be very scary. But the rest of the army does come down after dealing with the drop in the main base rather quickly. It didn't really do a whole lot, but it did pull him a little out of position. It was a little scary. Maybe Soul could have jumped on top of that 3rd CC, but instead it's Clem who tries to jump on top of Soul, but was that really a good call? I don't know about that. Clem's down 20 supply, and this is a situation where now that 2-2 difference could be huge. Like, you know, even with 30 seconds, sometimes battles just aren't in the midst of happening. They're not close to each other's armies, right? So it doesn't really matter. But when they're right next to each other and they both are vying for a fight, might even see a Liberator force someone's hand here, that's when having 2-2 is going to be a really big deal. And we're even going to have +1 on the tanks, which doesn't take any kill shots away, right? Doesn't make it 2 shots Marines or anything like that. It's a splash, so it does a lot of extra damage. And this quadruple drop manages to avoid the sensor tower. Really nice sight there from Soul, but honestly, even if there was a sensor tower covering that, he might have still done it. There was no missile turrets in the main base, excluding the one built for the Liberator earlier on, which doesn't help out that much. There is a lot of room in the main base. so Clem isn't forced through like his own choke or something weird like that, but he still is going to take inefficient trades here. As he jumps on top of one tank, he can't quite reach the other one. He pulls back so much of his army to deal with this. Certainly more than what Soul is dedicating here, and Soul is just simply up in army supply too. But he does lose his tanks. He will lose the army. And while more of Clem's army was taken back, he might just be able to hold here. No, he won't. He brought back too many tanks to defend against that. I think that was really the main problem. He has so many tanks that didn't really help out at the end of the day. And if 4 more tanks were here, then Soul cannot jump on top of the third base. Soul is going to take advantage of that, and Clem might just lose the game off the back of this. He barely saves the third CC. His upgrades are almost done, but he is down 20 armor supply still, now down 12 workers. Surprisingly, their fourths are similarly timed. I'm really surprised by that. But Clem is in the worst position, and as he takes this fight here, he realizes it was not great to take. Has to retreat, but into what? Into 1 tank? Soul will take care of that, overstimmed as he is. I was wondering where all Clem's tanks were. I think he might have mis-hotkeyed them or something. GG, Soul able to push and pull Clem out of position. Takes the victory. It's really hard to get out of that position as Terran and TVT when you're the one that's backed up against your own wall. Very rarely does your opponent give you the opportunity to get a concave better than them or get like a Viking domination, something like that. You usually have to have your own drop off to the left or right, or you do have to be a little quicker to thinking about Liberators and Vikings. And while maybe, probably Clem was thinking about all those things, like, okay, I'm going to keep this position and then I'm going to do something here, that's probably when Soul did the Doom drop, which ruined Clem's day. But it was close. This was not like, oh wow, Soul has the better moves 100%. Like, that was still close. And it could easily change if Clem were able to control the pacing of the game a little bit more. If he's the one in Soul's position, he's probably doing the exact same things. Cerulean Fall, our game number 2 map. Game 3 overall, but game number 2 map. Darn it. And top right, as the red Terran, he is Soul. In the bottom left is the blue Terran, it is Clem. I forgot that Clem had that Raven alive till the almost end. Didn't even see it go down when he tried to defend the main base. I'm not sure that would have... Well, it might have been a difference maker in the actual engagement in his main base. I think the majority of that loss was still him bringing so many tanks up to the high grounds. Because whether or not he takes 20 more seconds to clean up his main base because he has to find a better position, he has to wait for a concave or something like that. If he has 4 tanks that are on the low ground defending his third, that doesn't get broken. If that doesn't get broken, he recovers slowly, but I think he does recover. Because he got a 4th base up on location at the same time that Soul did. He was, obviously he cleared it up with mostly the Marines at the end of the day. So it's not like his production was going to be camped indefinitely. If he didn't bring those tanks, they ended up just kind of looking a little useless, and then he must have un-hotkeyed them or had a different hotkey for tanks specifically or something along those lines, because he never brought them forward to some of those end fights. Doom drops can be silly, Obviously they're silly because of what they usually do, which is instantly win the game. In our pleb games, that's what usually happens. But they can be silly because they can look really, really, really good, and then they drop into a weird position, and then it turns out their opponent in their own main base has a better concave. Sometimes they aren't like the biggest doom drops, so you're like, ah, it's not that bad, but then they do find a really nice choke to filter you through, or they get on top of the ramp or something like that. The size of the doom drop sometimes isn't as important as the location, right? Arguably, that is the most important thing, is the location of the doom drop. But, sometimes they can backfire as well, which is when it gets really silly. You're just like, wow, this is a wide open area. There's no missile turrets, there's no army. This is gonna be great. And then they get concaved on and they lose their army. You're like, oh, that wasn't great. You end up losing more. Shit. But for what it really did, which is pull the tank army, the defensive army into position, it was great for Seoul. Now, Seoul is 1 game away from entering into WCS EU for WCS Winter. As I was saying in the beginning of the last game, though, I believe both of these guys will eventually make it through. It just sucks to have to play another 6-7 hour qualifier. Although, you would think that qualifiers get shorter and shorter as more people are advanced on. This kind of backfires a little bit on Seoul. He loses a Reaper. We're gonna lose a second one with a Hellion shooting at it. And still doesn't win the micro with the second Hellion coming through. Little tiny things that rarely at this level snowball, but certainly can. They both get to Ravens, just with different avenues of swapping over add-ons. Slightly later command center because of the factory expand, was it? They both seem to really like these openers. I think they have a handle on it. Even with the slight differences of last game compared to the first game, it was still roughly all the same idea. No extreme differences such as proxy liberators or Viking tank pushes without Ravens. Well, I kind of forgot. Clem did that tank thing, which is really cool. I forgot about that. So that was kind of a big... That was different. They might just do it again. It was kind of close to winning the game. Well, it was close to denying mining from the natural, maybe is more accurate. If it wasn't for that second tank or the first tank of Seoul getting some damage done, then it might have been a position where the auto turret didn't do as much either, and suddenly you have to temporarily pause mining on your natural because 5 Marines and medevac on a tank are killing you. One Raven to 2. Clem's gonna get faster into the Vikings. It's all gonna come down to micro, but we'll see. The starport is supposed to go in the reactor? It's waiting. There we go. A little bit late to it, but this stage of the game, it's quite difficult to produce from starport reactor and tanks and your stim. So I'm not even sure you have the minerals and gas to use it. Should it have been instance. They both really are getting the same idea here. Third CCs around the same time, although Soul's not on location this game, means that he is a little bit behind. Similar stim. Clem only went for 2 Vikings? Yes, he did, and he's going into medevacs. He went for that 1 medevac earlier, or he canceled it? Oh, right, okay. So he's got 2 medevacs, and he is going to have still an air army. It's not going to be as big as Soul's. He could lose position. Where's that scan? So Soul scans the natural, misses the army. It's a little bit awkward. But 1 tank shot makes him realize, oh, it's just right behind that little grassy knoll, whatever you want to call it. It's not a knoll, but I wish it was. It's seaweed, I guess? I don't know. It's weird. Oh no. No, 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 no. No, 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 no! Not again, not again, not again. No, no, no! No! Okay, well this is just actually weird. So, unlike the game where they drew, where they had a draw, Clem's army wasn't in near enough position to be forced into it. And maybe, you know, also as a result, not in position to win it. So he does pull back. He could have boosted forward, but then he would have been losing a lot of his army. Oh no. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh gosh, the interference matrix on top of Clem's full energy Raven was huge. Auto turrets came down as it looked like Soul was really thinking Clem was gonna dive on top of the tanks. They ended up not looking so useful, but the interference matrix on Clem's Raven and then it dying was, oof, that could have been 2 interference matrix. That could have been 3, I think. It was close to max energy anyways. That might have been 3 interference matrix, and that would have been a really good cleanup, so. Whew. Whew, okay. Now, the double drop of Marines that had faster stim, but now they're even on stim, which is a matter of where the army is, does get into the natural, gets a couple SCVs, might even get a Viking. Nope, not gonna happen. Tanks siege up, and the Vikings, yeah, they don't get the right medevac, but they get one, and they will shortly soon get the other one. Temporary pause on the production is always the, I would argue, is the best thing you can do with a limited number of Marines is to snipe SCVs building stuff. It's so annoying. But he's really trying to make these Marines as annoying as possible. Almost got the second Raven. Ooh. He sees that Soul has moved most, if not all, of his army out of position. 2 tanks are really far over to the left side, so they aren't really protecting this third base. Clem has his army setting over here. He has +1 attack. He's on his way to armor. He does not have combat shields. Once again, a little late to that. But the Ravens use what they can before they die. Okay, both of them are dead. Interference matrix top of the Vikings is over. So most of them are firing at Soul's Vikings, but I believe Soul just had more Vikings to start with. Oh, I could have been wrong. Healthier Vikings for Clem means that he is going to win it and keep this position, keep the sights. That's really, really big. Without the sight of the Vikings, I don't think the tanks can hit that. Combat shields is done for Soul, but he doesn't really have that many Marines. He has 10 Marines to Clem's 28. Clem does now recognize the combat shields is missing. The third CC is being repaired, but it's not useful. This is a nice, nice position for Clem, who has 3 CCs. Who's mining efficiently. He's about to have equal upgrades. He's gonna have combat shields. Soul moves his entire army. Clem thought about maybe diving for that base. Decides better off not to. Is still gonna go ahead and jump on top of this 1 tank. Soul was hoping maybe there wouldn't be a scan and that 1 tank would be enough to deflect what is ultimately a small number of Marines without combat shields. It wasn't quite the case. His third CC is now completely moved off the third base location. And he has not been able to take advantage of Clem's mistiming of his combat shields. Now, Clem does have an army back at home, but his second factory wasn't quite done, so it's not a lot of tanks. And Soul is maneuvering over to this side of the map. It could be... Oh, my series... No, not again! No 2 draws in the same series. No! Bad Terrans. Oh my god, it might happen. Who's gonna break who's natural first? Clem. He's got a lot of Marines, a lot of high ground, so even though there aren't a lot of tanks, Soul isn't even stimming in that quickly. His tanks are being sieged up, but his Marines are getting obliterated, and that might not make it an easy access path to the main. You need those Marines to cover the tanks to even get up the natural ramp, much less the main, where there are still 5 barracks producing with 4 reactors. Things are looking better and better for Clem, who now has the army supply lead. He has the worker lead. He still has the third CC that's being used as a scout right now. I mean, sure, why not? Liberator comes back. There are 3 Marines, however, so it's not getting the freebie kills that maybe he was hoping for. In fact, not being paid attention to, as Clem's attention is basically all over here. No tanks, supply blocks stopping further tanks from being produced. This is not a planetary. It's going to be easily cleaned up, and Soul, unfortunately, with this bold maneuver over to Clem's side of the map, is not going to find victory. He was in a tough spot. His third CC being denied mining for so long was really starting to come into effect on the production. It was just moments away from Clem being able to afford, you know, extra barracks, extra factory, whatnot. This is a very bold move, but it might just work out. Clem was a little late to the response, but it looks like it's going to be, I think, a good enough cleanup is what I'm going to call it, because Clem still has his army over in Soul's main base doing damage. SCVs get the kill on 1 tank. They should get the kill on the other one. Oh, there's 3 tanks. Oh my god, I couldn't even see that third tank. They don't get the last hit. Oh my god. What was under there? Was that an SCV? That had to have been. I didn't see any more Marines. Oh, SCV pulls are legit. Speaking of SCV pulls, Soul is able to get whatever Marines he could from whatever barracks left over, but they're going down a ramp into 2 tanks, and Soul is down to 4 workers when all is said and done, and he can't even clean up the push. I think that's going to be it. He's got a couple Marines camping production. Clem just needs to actually find some place to mine from, and that's what was his problem. But he ends up, he just doesn't mine anymore and just pulls them into the Marines of Seoul. This is it. GG. GG. Whew. It's a tied series. It's all tied up. It's a fun TVT. Are there any updates on the bracket? Soul Spirit beat Strange. Who is Soul Spirit? We're watching the Soul that most people know, so who is Soul Spirit? He's a Zerg player. He's French. That's all I got. Huh. Marine Lord lost to Sort of, who is now facing Geralt. Koss is up 1 against Harsum. Damn, if Koss makes it through. Represent the old school players. And of course, we're still casting Clem vs. Soul. These guys are trying their best to make it a 2-draw series, but we are into game number 4 on map number 3. You heard me. In the bottom right, as the Red Terran, it is Soul. In the top left, as the Blue Terran, it is Exceeds Clem. I'm not sure what team Soul is on. I don't think he is on a team. He used to be, but I don't know about anymore. Okay, so he is on Iron Chain right now. Just hasn't swapped his clan over, I guess. Unless that is the clan tag for them. Oh, IOC. Okay, well, alright. While I'm looking people up, I'm going to look for Soul Spirit. French 3rd player playing for Dust Gaming. Lost against Safano in a Gamers Assembly last March. That's a pretty big win for him. I mean, you could certainly argue he had an easier bracket than others. But even then, that's like, it's not really that easy. Soul Spirit's, you know, way to victory included, let's see here. He beat Koss. He lost to Goblin. Then he beat DNS, who I think right now DNS's problem is just consistency, like maybe mentality a little bit too, I don't know, but can be very, very good. And then he beat Art. Then he beat Strange. So is it full of like powerhouse names? No, I guess not, but still some strong Protoss players. Maybe that's also coincidentally one of his stronger matchups. Yeah, cool to see someone new. Why I say WW? It's correct. Most people say it as an alternative to GG. Some people say that it means well won, but honestly, it's because the W... Oh my god, let me do this right. Hold on. It's a Korean thing because the W on their keyboard is the Korean Hangul letter that makes the G sound. Whew, sometimes remembering the order of how to explain that gets a little tough. So there's a... You know, if you ever heard like G, 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 G. They have their own Hangul of how that is typed. And their English keyboard is swapped between Korean and English with the Alt key or something like that. So if you see them type it correctly, when they're in the Korean keyboard mode on their keyboard, it's a straight line with two, like, curved lines under it. Anyways. It's kind of been ingrained now as an alternative to saying GG, and people would say that it means, you know, it can mean well won. Like, it works. The guy's name of a country's city or something like that, Landverpugwegenglock, is correct. We have a bit of a different opener here for Clem, who goes for a Cyclone. Oh no, they both went for a Cyclone. But Soul's still going for a Raven. Clem is going for something else here. Oh, he's just swapping off to get to a Raven. That's the difference. Oh, please, stop avoiding each other's armies. This is not enough of an army to cause a base race, but it could cause a really abrupt ending if something goes really, really wrong. They both are going to pull SCVs from the natural. The natural should not die. The only thing here that shoots up is the Cyclone. It's a question of whose supply depots die faster, and right now Clem isn't paying attention, so he's not killing it that fast. There we go. He has a medevac that was being used earlier to harass, which I was kind of missing in my explanation of the GG. So that might just be a real important part to this. You can't base race this. No, stop it. Okay, yeah. Meaning that, like, he can break his opponent's lock on if that ever came down to it, and he could also drag and drop stuff on top of that tank. Now, a tank pops out for Clem as well, who's starting to lose workers to the double Hellions. He didn't protect his mineral line the same way that Soul did. And in fact, he's losing a lot of workers to this Hellion, which is finally taken out. Reaper can now even be surrounded, but that's a lot of lost mining time. He's now down 13 workers. The most damage he's doing is stopping production from this second command center, and of course the mining. But Soul is probably happy with this trade. Clem was a little late to breaking down that main base. If he hadn't been, maybe he's on top of the tank, and that doesn't help as much. Unfortunately, he couldn't have done much about the Raven Viking combo. And his medevac goes down. That was a pretty crucial tool. He could bring that back and repair it and then continue harassing, maybe start to climb up in the SCV count. But this early on, down by 9 workers, that is a very big deal. He can't control the natural to stop at least production from happening. He is just straight up behind. He is going to go again for a medevac, recognizing that might just be his way back into things. But, you know, it's a tough choice. You try and make another Viking and win the air war, as Soul's trying to do, but he has a Raven, you don't? Or do you try and maybe out-micro your opponent? He's going to go for the break on the main base. He does get the tank, but his medevac's not quite over here. And this tank does have time to reposition, but Soul, he needs to pay attention. Okay, I was afraid he's going to reposition to the main. And Clem was going to bamboozle him, but it doesn't work out that way. He trades out a tank for a tank. Ultimately does not end up in Clem's favor because he is still behind. It's not like you're a Zerg player and you have to either make workers or army, especially when you're still on a decent worker count. Soul is able to produce both, and he is still up 10 workers now. This is a significant drop in economy so early on. If this was 10 minutes in the game, that's like a engagement that goes somewhat well for Clem that brings him back. This early on, it's bad. It's really bad. He knows he's in a bad position. Soul knows that Clem's in a bad position, so Soul's going to try and continue his lead here, go for a third CC, and just play the defensive game. Kairos Junction has a couple of nasty spots. Its main base is rather large for a Doom drop, perhaps. There's a couple of chokes over here that can be abused, but Clem's going to have the illusion of control, right? Which, for now, Soul's giving to him. Soul's just playing defensive. But I'm talking like when his army really starts to dip down in supply because Soul's economy is just so much better. He's going to have to keep the illusion. He's going to have to go for drops and pull Soul's army back and away from other parts of his army so that it seems like Clem is capable of having a good macro game, but it probably won't be the truth. Thank you for the 300 bits, Nitzd. Great cast, I have some more bits. Yeah, thank you. You read his name, just take a bite of something substantial and talk. I was talking about that drop. I didn't even see it coming in, but the interference matrix is absolutely crucial here. But the tanks of Soul are a little bit late. That could be big. They're sieging up now, but those tanks of Clem, had they not been interference matrix, would have gotten such great shots. I mean, absolutely brutal shots on what was a very clumped up army. those interference matrices just probably saved a big headache. I'm not sure if they saved Soul's life, but it would have been a big headache because it would have been on top of what limited production he had aside from the factory, and the SCVs also would have started going down to the marine fire. But as it is, Clem takes the victory where he can find it. He lost out on some, you know, decent amount of supply there, but he was able to grab a couple SCVs, put them back to even. Now we can take a quick look at the graph. Oh, empathy game heart, just kidding. So just trust me, guys. Soul has been mining longer off of those more workers, right? Makes sense. You don't have to try and disprove me. It just makes sense, trust me. So he's already had that come into effect. He already has the 3rd TC down, and he's still even able to get a couple extra production facilities. But Clem has brought this game back a little bit. He's also going for an on-location command center, so that's going to help him too. Liberator denied mining from one of his mining bases, though, is kind of huge, and it even takes away a lot of Marines. In fact, a scary number of Marines from the front lines, where he's also not paying attention, so he doesn't pull back his tanks. Soul has the high ground vision. Soul has the better vision for the tanks, and he even has those Ravens, which are really getting scary. Second by second, tick-tock. Interference matrices are coming down. His tanks will no longer be useful. He needs those Marines there to make sure Soul doesn't get too cocky. This is an auto turret, actually, and then lands his Vikings, thinking that Clem might have gone for the bust, or maybe Soul just thought he could bust him, and he was right about that. Tanks go down, and Soul has just increased his army supply lead, not just in numbers, but in value as well. He's taken away Clem's very valuable defensive units. Clem needs to get to Vikings, but unfortunately, it's something that he would have... If he had Vikings right now that appeared and cut down the Liberator, and maybe sniped a Raven before Soul's Vikings responded, I believe. But to start making Vikings now, after your medevacs, it's not going to work out. Liberator's going to help here, and this is going to be the last stand of Clem. It got really, really weird. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out for our young Terran player from France, but he has 2 more qualifiers to go. It looks like he will actually clean this up just about, but he lost so many SCVs in the process. Now down 34 workers, 35 workers. Did I do math correctly, guys? And I mean, what is this even? What even happens from here? I mean, he can't even do a doom drop. You can't really do a successful doom drop without a couple of tanks, and I literally mean a couple. Not 1, 2 is okay, but not great. So at least a couple. Thank you, Master Goblin, for that tier 1 sub. Much appreciated. As we're getting into the last few minutes of this game, of the series, of the cast, of the qualifier, so on and so forth. But we will be back tomorrow for the 2nd qualifier, of which I am sure we'll see Clem again, and I'd put money on him winning even through the winner's bracket. In fact, we're going to have 8 less strong European players tomorrow, and then 16 less for the final qualifier, and it's just inevitable that someone of Clem's caliber is going to make it through. Clem might have had an opening when the supplies were similar about 30 seconds ago, but that quickly changed. Soul is able to produce from every single one of his production facilities. Clem, not so much. He doesn't even have reactors on his barracks and can't even get an upgrade here. Sensor towers will reveal the intent of Clem in a rather simple response by the medevacs here. Low ground tanks were seen by Clem, so he's going to try and avoid them, but interference matrix once again ruining his chances at a comeback. Ruined. Clem doesn't want to give up. It's been such a long day for him. It's been just about 6 hours. Plus all the warm-up that he had to do before this, hoping to make it through in 1 day. He doesn't want to give up, but it's not looking so hot. His 3rd TC's done, but it's on fire. Okay, I missed a drop somewhere. And Soul is... Now, maybe when it was 8 minutes and I was like, I don't know about this, Soul was still a little scared of losing, but now he should never ever be scared of losing. And there's the tap out. Good man.